But it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward.
Hello, it's July 2025. Now, this video, I'm just going to go over my content and where I'm coming from. Perhaps even address some questions that have been asked over time and just kind of talk about my channel overall. Now, I'm going to be very brief, but I hope to really make the points here on the topics I'm going to discuss. So I want to start off by talking about the introduction that I have to my videos for the past, I think about a year and a half, maybe 2 years, and explain why I have that. Now, it has nothing to do with arrogance or promoting myself or anything else. Really what it has to do with, for example, is prior to my having that, for example, comments or discussions that I would have with people about my content on a specific video or something, for example, about law, people would not know, for example, my background. And quite clearly, they don't have any background on the topics I discuss. And they would make silly comments or challenge me. Then I would have to qualify myself. And I just found that I was repeating that over and over. And I thought, okay, I'll do an introduction real quick. And I've seen other big names do this, where they kind of go over their career history or whatever. You see this a lot, for example, on, I guess, television shows or something that have been streaming online. Not that I watch them, but I've just noticed them. They just go over who they are. So when people go to watch the content, they have an idea of, for example, this person's knowledge base and perhaps why they're saying what they're saying. And this can range anywhere from law and even to the woo-woo, as I describe it. So I just kind of give that insight there. I'll give you an example of, been a few times actually, more than a few times, where because I discuss the police, judicial, and political corruption in the city of Calgary, Alberta, Canada, specifically. People assume, oh, well, I don't know law, I hate police and everything else. And none of that is true. And so eventually I would have to explain, no, this is not where it's coming from. And my insight is from a professional perspective, as well as a personal perspective. So, and there's no bias on my part or anything else. And usually that ends conversations or allegations from people and so forth. So really that's the point of the introduction that I have to my videos lately. Again, it has nothing to do with ego or self-promotion or anything else. It's just, hey, this is some brief examples of, for example, where I've been in life and where my knowledge base comes from, etc. And perhaps even explain why am I talking about the things that I'm talking about. So with that said, the outro that I started using, I can't remember when I started using the outro, but it was maybe about 3 or 4 years prior, 3 years prior. Again, that was the same kind of idea, but from a different perspective, using other sources to kind of highlight different things. Again, not to self-promote or anything else, just to say, hey, look at, this is from other sources. So that kind of explains the intros to my videos and the outros. Now, some people, as I said, using that one example with hate the police or I hate the government or anything else, which none of it's true. I highlight, for example, injustice or inconsistencies or whatever the case may be, regardless who or what. I don't affiliate with any belief system or religion. I don't promote any, nor do I bash any. I simply at times may highlight as a descriptive issues with one or the other, but that's as far as I go. And those are not really my focus of my efforts with my content. However, again, people will ask questions, enough people ask enough questions that, okay, I'll address this in a video or whatever. So I don't hate any profession, nor do I hate any particular group or person or anything else. And individuals that I might highlight, for example, on, with this so-called convoy, it's not an attack against them. And I've said this repeatedly, it's more to show how society is very easily manipulated. And the cycles of civilization and the patterns within and everything else would be the base for anything else. And I might use individuals or events, current worldwide events or whatever, to highlight that. So it's not, and again, this is not a diss towards the society, the commoner, as much as perhaps highlighting the direction that we're going and how to prepare for it. So I'm kind of briefly going over some of that content. Now, over time, people have been very interested, for example, in some of what I call woo-woo experiences, and I've shared that reluctantly because I know that for some it might challenge my credibility, because I'm talking about things that most people haven't experienced and most people want to deny, because that means reality is much stranger than fiction type of thing and everything else. So that really sums up my channel, my efforts, who I am, why I've included different things. And I'll also address, for example, how my videos used to be more simple, visually simple. And over time, some people had advised that I should kind of make it more interesting visually. So now we have my using a lot of green screens and everything else to kind of create something more visually appealing, not just, a boring background, for example. I've always done overlays. I've used overlays more so, or using them more consistently now, because things that I talk about, for example, I support with independent sources or something, or sometimes the overlays simply tell a completely different story, but it all ties in if you pay attention. And there's a lot of people have noticed there's a lot of details hidden. I'm just trying to think as a bad descriptive, hidden messages and things to decipher, or whatever you want to call it. And for some people, they think this is pretty cool, this is really great. Everything that I've done, I've put together, is not all willy-nilly, for example. So even things that I say, everything has a specific meaning, or perhaps multiple meanings. Sometimes I leave things for interpretation, which I don't even have one for myself, but I know that, hey, this can go in all these different directions, simply to make people think. That's it. And I'm just trying to think, what else did I want to address regarding my content, my efforts, and everything else. I do talk about the cycles of civilization and everything else, and what's happening in the world today. And I'm sure many people not just here in Canada or the US, but all around the world, can see how everything is deteriorating, everything's falling apart. And this is the last stage of any civilization. We also have social issues and everything else, which I talk about or I use overlays to highlight, and I'm just simply showing that we are in the late stage of the last stage of civilization, the age of decadence. And you know, sitting back from where I am, watching, as a descriptive, the world burn is hard enough. And then I'm dealing with my own challenges personally, like with my health and everything else. My health is not doing very well, although it takes me a lot of effort to compose myself for videos. Sometimes I go to record, I'll try to do many takes, and I just give up and record another day when I'm feeling better. And then I have all this behind the scenes stuff that I, for example, in recent videos that I've highlighted, that adds to my stress and my tension, which is really people making uninformed conclusions based on false, inaccurate information, for example, on police computer databases in Canada known as CPIC. And whatever's going to happen is going to happen with that. Hopefully nothing happens. You know, I pray for that by the time this video comes out. And my videos are generally scheduled, sometimes far in advance, and there's videos that are scheduled way out there in case my health does fail or whatever else. And you know, it is what it is. You know, I've spent, well, since what, 2022 doing everything I can to fix my health, to stay alive, and I continue to do so. And this is it. So it's really hot right now today, and I just want to get through this video really quick. I don't want to make it too long. So hopefully I've addressed some of the things about me, my channel, my efforts, my videos, visually, audio, with the audio, and anything else. And if you have any questions, please do leave the questions in the description box, or sorry, the comment section below, and I will answer them. And if I get a lot of people asking the same types of questions, then perhaps I'll do a video on that as well. Anyway, thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, comment, and share.
After 9 years, you know what I realized? Ignorance is bliss.
Listen to this and write it down if you can't remember it. You're never going to outgrow warfare. You simply must learn to fight. I hear people say to me, oh, when is it going to get easier? When you die.